All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday. It's February 23rd. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. As always, I'm joined by Chief. But, Chief, we have one more guest joining us today.
Uncle Chaps, one of my favorites.
Uncle Chaps on Zoom. This guy's been through a rabbit hole, it seems like. He can't stand on Twitter for less than, 5 minutes without talking about Pangea. So we're like, Chaps, just let's talk it out, man.
The guy loves supercontinents, and honestly, who doesn't?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge supercontinent guy, and I think it's 3Chi that's really like opening up the Pangea box for me. That happened the first time. I don't know where it came from. I think I just saw, like, scrolling on TikTok, somebody mentioned the word Pangea, and it was something that's not just like floating around the top of the old brain all the time, Pangea. And so I hadn't thought about it in years, and I started reading all these different articles about Pangea, and I was like, this thing is wild. I can't believe it happened, and it's going to happen again. We're going to have a supercontinent again in like 80 million years.
50. Yeah, I read 50, so it's like that's a blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's nothing. In the grand scheme, that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into that. I also want to get into what's kind of happening in Texas as well, because for so many people like Ryan and I who are, adapted and molded by the cold, the people up here, and some people are just dicks about it. Be like, oh, can't handle the cold. I just don't think a lot of people understand what's going on. So that's kind of interesting as well.
I mean, we're not adapted. You just broke your foot.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Oh, you got a broken foot?
Ankle, yeah, fractured ankle, Chaps.
Oh, man, I didn't even see that. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's all right. It's one of those things that you just kind of deal with, though.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, yeah, of course. Like,
I mean, odds are someone out of this office was going to have a broken foot by end of winter.
With the way it's been going, it's been an awful winter up here, too. But before we really kick it off here, Chaps, though, I do want to say that this episode is brought to you in part by Trifecta Nutrition. Chief, we got a meal prep company with us now.
I need it. This,
we all need it.
I'm trying to like redo my New Year's. I don't like New Year's resolutions. I like to wait until like March, then I start like let the disappointment fade out, get a late start on it, and then I feel like then that's how I start cooking. Trifecta Nutrition is going to be a big part of that for me.
Yeah, listen, they make meal prep not suck. All the meals are backed by nutrition science, and they taste great, and they make it simple to get in the best shape of your life. That's convenient. That you could stick to your nutritional goals. It's science-backed nutrition as well. All of the meals follow scientific nutritional principles. It's fresher food. It's farm to fork supply chain. It's never frozen. Organic produce, gluten-free. The meat is animal welfare level 5, which is the highest possible one. The food is also fully cooked already, so no wasting time, just getting it going from that perspective. And athletes use it. It's that's vegan, paleo, keto, and more. So yeah, definitely get some Trifecta Nutrition. You could shop at their meal plans and you can get 40% off, which is an insane deal. Yeah, 40. Use the code DOGWALK. Go to trifectanutrition.com. So that's DOGWALK for this exclusive offer. Go get your 40% off. Get some meal prep going. It's really a no-brainer. So, Chaps, tell us what's kind of up there, dude, because like I said, it's crazy.
All right, so Texas is a little bit different. And I think that one of the main aspects of Texas that people hate about Texas, and I think it's pretty justifiable, is that Texas loves being Texas to a degree no other state in the union does. Like, Texas is just so proud of being Texas. With that, they hate the idea of the federal government stepping in and doing anything, even if it's not beneficial to Texans. For example, we're one of the last states in health outcomes. Like, everybody here, for the most part, doesn't have health insurance, but we say, no, we don't want Medicaid and Medicare to expand in Texas. Get that shit out of our face. We'd rather have our people just go to emergency rooms and live in crippling debt. Like, that's what
we'd rather be dead.
Right. Education. We don't want a whole lot of money coming in from there. Energy is another one. Like, they want to be energy independent. So many other states have like a power sharing program where if something really bad happens in Illinois, Iowa or Ohio steps up and they will send power down the grid in order for you guys to have power during terrible times. That doesn't happen in Texas. Texas has its own grid, and it's in 3 parts. One is in El Paso, one's near Galveston, and then the rest of Texas is covered here. Well, in removing federal regulations, like Ted Cruz and Governor Abbott and the Attorney General filed suits to get the feds out of our business, essentially. Well, when you do that, it's great because a lot of times the prices will fall because the free market dictates that the lowest bidder is going to come in and get it, and you're going to have power for free or much, much cheaper. Well, when you build everything super cheap, it breaks. Like, so those federal regulations that they have on most power plants weren't the same in Texas. Like, where everywhere else you have to have winterizing and things like that. Well, Texas looked at it and we're like, ah, fuck it. It's never cold here. It's never cold everywhere. We're not going to pay for that. We're going to be cheaper. So then whenever you have this monumental storm that overtakes Texas, and this is the first time in the history of the United States and the history of Texas that all the counties in Texas were under a winter storm warning. First time that's ever happened. So the average temperatures across the state dropped. The windmills froze. The water that was going into like the coal plants and the natural gas plants, all those lines froze. So then Texas is just absolutely fucked. And then every single house here in Texas is not built for the cold. Like where you live, your houses are designed primarily to keep the heat in and keep the cold out. Our houses are designed the opposite way. Keep the house out, or keep the heat out and keep the cool in. So whenever it drops, the temperature drops. My house, even though it's pretty new, dropped to 43 degrees on the inside. Jesus. When we didn't have power over a couple days. I woke up on Tuesday morning, could see my breath in the house.
Wow. Listen, did you know all that?
About the construction of the houses?
And did you know about why the big reason why they're in trouble right now is because they don't want the help? I did not.
I knew that they were on like their own grid, like they're on a different grid, and that's just like Texas. Weren't they like their own country for like 10 years at one point?
Yeah, it was his own country. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a sliver of their identity. They're still holding on to that. My brother-in-law is from like West Texas, like Brownsville or something like that, and he's always talking about, oh, it's Texas could be a republic. I'm like, well, you tried it and it didn't really work. So why don't you just join the rest of us? So I knew like a little bit, but not to this degree. And then waking up at 43 degrees that's a problem. Like, how do you get out of bed?
I mean, I didn't. Like, I stayed in there most of the time. I sent my family to a hotel, but there's houses here. Luckily, I live in a new house, so I have a different type of pipe system where if it froze, it goes back to the normal size. Houses here were freezing cold. They had water everywhere. There was water damage because the houses just are not built that way. I mean, I've lived here for 10 years. I've never seen the temperature drop below like 25, maybe. And that's for a morning. And then by the afternoon, it's 60 degrees. We didn't get above 15 degrees for 5 days. Texas is not built for that at all. We had negative temperatures on the thermometer for the first time ever. Several days of it was the coldest day in the history of San Antonio. We had in the past 20 years combined 2 inches of snow. This week we had 2 days in a row with 6 inches or more of snow. So it's just not ready for that. You're just not.
And I assume you guys are like everywhere else in the South where you don't have like the salt trucks and the snow plows and everything. So you just have no choice. And even if you have your
some
truck,
will, like Amarillo or Dallas, like the more northern cities in Texas. But people don't understand how big Texas is. The distance between the Atlantic Ocean and Beaumont, Texas and then from El Paso to California, it's bigger. Like Texas is all the way across the United States, bigger in the middle than those distances combined.
Jeez. Wow. It's big.
Huge.
Yeah.
Like from San Antonio, I live almost smack dab in the middle of the southern part of Texas. It takes me 8 hours to drive to get out of Texas, or about 6 hours to drive to get out of Texas, and then about 8 hours the other way to get out of Texas.
So when you said your house was 43 degrees, what was your heat at? Was it at the same, or what's?
It's at 60, but it was off. Everything was off. So like we didn't have power. There was, I think in Texas, there was 6 million houses without power for a long period of time. People died, like Galveston, Texas. They actually had, in the Gulf of Mexico, there was ice on the shoreline. There was snow on the shore of the Gulf of Mexico, which is insane. Like it's just crazy that happened.
Yeah. Is this like considered a bigger disaster than the hurricane that went through Houston like a few years ago?
No, and I don't think because the financial damage and the loss of life there was just so much greater.
Was it? Okay.
I mean, everything in Houston was just completely like destroyed.
Okay. So no.
So this one, your homes are messed up, but you can kind of bounce back from it a little bit faster, except for the fact because we don't have even really state regulations on power. People woke up on Thursday getting their power bills, $16,000. I saw one dude had a $16,000 bill.
Jesus
I saw
Christ.
that too. So how's that going to work? That can't
Well,
this can't be.
I think that they're just going to have to, I don't know what they're going to do because you can't go back and make like a retroactive law like that says that you can't do that. The power companies tried to make it like, oh, we're going to do the right thing and spread it over 10 years. I still don't want to pay 16 grand over what I'm supposed to pay, even if it's over 10 years.
Hell no. And people
Crazy.
were really like frozen on the streets. Like that was a thing.
Corpus Christi had to call in more morgue trucks because they didn't have enough room for all the people that died in that area.
Wow,
because
that's
they are
terrible.
even less prepared because they're a beach town.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Man, I just
Awful.
yeah, I just honestly I did not know much of that. So yeah, but everything seems to be getting better now.
Yeah, and I think that like if you look around other parts of the country, if we put like that's obviously not the worst storm that you're going to get, winter storm in Illinois or anything like that in Chicago, but down here we deal with 105, 110 degree heat for 100 days in a row. You throw that on another city in America of what we deal with, they're not going to be able to deal with that.
And then also like I don't care where you are or where you're from. If you have multiple snowstorms of 6 inches or more in a week, that's fucking a problem. Like that's just it's just a pain in the ass to deal. Like we have the infrastructure and equipment to get rid of it, but it's not like people are happy about it. You know, like we would absolutely complain about that, and I have been. So the fact that you guys are dealing with it without any of like the support is crazy.
I'm about to send you guys a picture and like the fallout where there was gas shortage, like you didn't have the ability to get gas. I'm going to send you guys right now 2 pictures of what my grocery store, and I live in a pretty affluent area. Look at what the shelves in my grocery store look like whenever I went to get groceries after the storm was over.
Oh my God. Like this is worse than the beginning of the pandemic.
Holy
There's
shit.
absolutely nothing like, and you could post it on y'all social feed, like the cheese section. That's like a huge aisle. There's not one package of cheese or milk or dairy or eggs or anything like that. Then the bread aisle is completely empty as well. Like it was completely picked over. Nothing to be had.
That's insane.
It's like the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then listen, it's had to shake my head, but also there's some humor in it. Have you ran into many of these whack jobs that are burning the snow and saying that it's fake?
I wish I had one. I didn't have one, but it would be awesome. And I think that usually would work here because the downfall would be where you guys live. If you did that, you're going to have ice everywhere, right? And wouldn't that be the downfall? But typically here, if it melts by the time the afternoon hits, it's going to be sunny enough for it to go away anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that you could use here, like realistically. For me, I saw all my dumbass neighbors shoveling all the snow off of their sidewalks and with regular shovels because we don't have shows. Nobody has a snow shovel
Like
here.
this is my whole digging shovel, but I'm going to have to repurpose it.
People are out trying to use rakes and shit. My wife was like, "Are you going to go get all the snow off of our cars?" And I'm like, "No, dude. On fucking Thursday, it's supposed to be 75 degrees.
We're
It's
waiting
going
it
to
out.
go
We're
away."
waiting it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the people who were being like, "Oh, Bill Gates sent us this stuff."
Oh no, that I was talking about that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're like,
yeah.
hey, it's got.
Like Tito Ortiz, I saw Robbie Fox tweet that. He's like deep into people like, see, this is fake. This is it's crazy.
It is crazy, but like when you see the videos where the snow doesn't melt, it just turns black. I'm like, hey, what the fuck? Like I don't know enough about the laws of physics or anything like that, but in my head, it should just turn into water. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, needless to say, glad you're okay, chaps. Glad.
Thank you very
glad
much.
Everyone's fine. But yeah, Pangea was the plan today. You've been tweeting a lot about it, like I said at the top of the show. Where did the inspiration come? Like, what, you're just like watch the doc on it or something?
I just saw somebody mention it on TikTok. Like it was a very passing thing. And somebody said, I bet this hasn't happened since Pangea was around. And I was like, whoa. Pangea, that's not a word I've heard in a long time, except for like Little Dicky songs. So then I started Googling what was going on with Pangea, and I thought how big that is. Like, because the really the worldwide map system is so North American skewed now, the way that the map looks, where you don't realize how big both Asia and Africa is. Like, Africa is just absolutely enormous. But then if you put all the rest of the 6 continents together with Africa, and you try to imagine what modern culture would look like with that just one big block, I don't even know what it would look like.
Well, I did my own research on that, and they said that, you know how like speaking of Africa, where like everything's North America centric, you can take the entire United States and fit it inside the landmass of the Sahara Desert, which is just like, you know, the northern part of Africa. And then you got this whole other, you know, southern part of that continent. They said that when there was Pangea, it was so big that no moisture could get across it. So you only had like vegetation around like the coast and like maybe, you know, I don't know, a few hundred miles in, maybe 1,000 miles in. And then the rest was just all desert because nothing could get across it because it was just so fucking big. Wow. So when they were like looking for like fossils and these records of Pangea, there's just nothing around because from that time period in terms of like leaves or anything or vegetation or bugs, because there just wasn't any, because nothing could live there. Be like,
and there was
on Mars.
There was no natural disasters for the most part as well, because you didn't have those types of storms. You had one ocean. It was a super ocean that surrounded the entire Pangea. There was no tides at all. Like, the ocean was very, very calm from what they say. So you don't have like some of the same principles that you do now. A typhoon doesn't happen. A hurricane doesn't happen because of the tides. So it's just it'd be like a completely different planet, really.
Yeah.
Dan, that was one of my first questions, because I was thinking if you did squish everything together, like which climates would be drastically changed? Like, would Florida be like a rainforest? You know what I mean? But you're saying
everything's fucking changed.
Yeah.
They had you know, this doesn't totally line up, but like Antarctica was like smushed up into like between Africa and India, and they're saying like when you go to like dig around Antarctica, some of these like coastal areas that don't have the biggest glaciers, or maybe they've melted off, they find like palm trees and these ferns, and they find like bones of like marsupials and things like that, because they were just up in that like tropical area. And when they start, like, they didn't have like even the ice caps like they used to have. So like the whole, like all of Antarctica, even though it was still pretty far south, it was up a little bit closer to the equator, and it was just like all greenery. So I'm dying. Like that, like, I'm not rooting for global warming, but I'm really excited to find out what's underneath Antarctica. I bet you there's all kinds of cool shit buried underneath.
Well, you see it in Russia, where Siberia, their tundra is really freezing. Mm-hmm. They're having full ass woolly mammoths that they can look at and get different types of DNA samples and things like that. And then when you have the north, like the polar ice caps in the north, you also have sedimentary rock that's there as well, which only comes from water. So it's just so different, and it's hard to wrap your head around. And last night I was searching more about Pangea, and there's a GIF. You know those GIFs where it'll be like, let's look at how many passing yards Tom Brady has comparatively. And then it'll start at like Johnny Unitas is at the top. And then you all of a sudden see like Peyton Manning rise, and then Dan Marino rises. Well, it was sort of like that, but for Pangea, where it was like they fit everything together and they showed how it all separated and was different. And then they put it back together again. And you could see like India was smashed into where it is right now. And the time period, have you seen this, Chief, where they have the time period, for example, of how far like the Great Barrier Reef is moving away from Australia, or how much, because Africa is the only one that's really stationary, how much North America is moving, and it's like 3 inches. And if you do the if you do the math of how far the continents are moving now, and you times that out by how long they say it was ago Pangea, it adds up like right perfectly
dead
of
on.
where it would be.
Yeah, that's another thing. And then I did like the story of the guy who discovered, or like first theorized this. It was this German guy named Alfred Wegener, and he like wrote a book, and he was this geologist, scientist, who like everybody thought he was a smart guy. Then he came out with this book about, hey, like I think there used to be a supercontinent, and this was in 1912. So back then, nobody knew what the bottom of the ocean looked like. Everyone just thought it was like basically like a cement thing on the bottom. And
like a pool.
Yeah, basically like, nah, down there is just like it's just a pool. What are you talking about? They're like, you're a fucking idiot. And it like ruined his career. He was like completely discredited. And then 50 years later, when they came up with like sonar and radar and things like that, where they can kind of map out the bottom of the ocean, everyone saw like these big continental rifts, like these where the Atlantic Ocean and those two continents like moving away from each other. And everyone's like, he was right. Like, so like they like destroyed this guy's entire reputation, couldn't really work or teach anymore after that book. And then he ended up being right the whole time.
Well, he got it a lot better than that fella who discovered that the universe is not actually Earth centric, but it's like the sun is the central point.
Yeah.
They set his ass on fire. So I'd rather have my job ruined than being set on fire.
True. Yeah, and then the other thing I found from that I thought was fascinating is that so the oldest mountain range in the world is the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern part of the United States, which are like these smaller, they're nothing compared to the Rockies or certainly the Himalayas in Asia. But that used to be the biggest mountain range in the world. Like it was higher than the Himalayas, and you can like geologically trace it to the origins. And when you smash Pangea back together, Appalachia connects up with these mountain ranges in Spain and then all the way up into the Scottish Highlands. So like that was one continuous mountain range that they think was as big or bigger than what we have today with like Mount Everest in the Himalayas, which is crazy to think about. And they can do it by being like, we have the exact same type of rocks with the same type of like, they have those pressure where they have like the different lines and things like that in the rock. And it just lines up like perfectly with the Appalachian Mountains.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
and the only reason they're not big anymore is because of all the erosion. The other, how you said Africa kind of stays put too? Well, whereas North America and South America drift away, they say Africa is actually moving north. So like Africa is eventually over in like the next 50 million years going to like smash and just there will be no more Mediterranean Sea and it'll just crash right into Europe. And that will cause like another huge, like the Alps will go to like 50,000 feet because Africa will just like push it up that far high.
That would be fucking insane.
Insane.
Yeah.
We're going to have like Chaps said, it's going to be a whole different planet.
So did Antarctica get like the rawest deal out of this?
Yeah, I mean,
gotta think so. Yeah.
Seems pretty miserable. I mean, ask the penguins, but I mean, it looks pretty fucking terrible down there.
That's what it feels like.
24 hours of darkness most of the time.
Yeah, that's bad.
Not great.
Can't have that. Who was our guy that sailed there?
Shackleton.
Yeah.
Shackleton.
You know that guy, Chaps?
I don't know him, but I do know my friend Din, the penguin that goes from Antarctica to Chile every year.
Oh, that's a treacherous path, too.
Den?
Well, and they say like those currents in that part of like the circle around Antarctica are like far and away the most powerful and it's the most dangerous, scariest ocean in the world. So a little guy Den making that trip, it's nothing to sneeze at.
Brave guy.
It's not.
Chief, we got a part 2 coming up here.
Can't wait. Love the weirdness. Love talking to Chaps. And it's just there's so much that nobody knows. And that gets my interest every time.
Dude, what a fun episode this is. Very fun.
Great episode.
Yeah, like yesterday was a lot, like I said, it was a lot about Texas and very informational. I didn't know a lot of that shit. I don't think a lot of people did.
It's hard for me to like really understand what's going on. Like if you don't live there and you're not experiencing it, you just kind of see these weird clips on the news or on Twitter where it's like, an entire, like a pipe burst and there's this ice ball car. It's like, well, what the fuck is going on? How does that happen? So Chaps was really, that was informational. That was great.
And this one definitely gets a little weird and like just, a lot of
theoretical geology shit, outer space, weird stuff.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So definitely go listen to that one if you didn't listen to this one. But without further ado, let's hop into it. But before we do, Chief, I do want to talk about Trifecta Nutrition. Like I said, They are now the meal prep company that Barstool Chicago is using. They hopped on board here with Dog Walk. They're with Redline Radio as well, I believe. It's the best meal prep on earth. All our meals are created by chefs and nutritionists to help people get into the best shape of their lives. Trifecta makes meal prep not suck. All their meals are backed by nutrition science and taste great, making it simple to get into the best shape of your life and, eating health not suck. Science-backed nutrition. You can stick to your goals. They're convenient. Like I said, fresher food, farm to fork supply chain, never frozen, organic produce, gluten-free, meat that is animal welfare level 5, highest possible. We care about that, right, Chief?
Oh, big time.
We do. So, stop wasting time cooking or cleaning, and you could just heat and be ready to go. Athletes are using it. There's plans for all lifestyles, vegan, paleo, keto, and more. And it's more than just a nutrition program. Trifecta actually has an app to help you track everything.
Yep.
That's nice. There's a community for Trifecta customers, support progress, and of course, what you like most about your Trifecta meals. To get your hands on these, you can shop for meal plans and get 40% off, which is a crazy amount. So go do it. Meal prep, you can get enter the code DOGWALK. Go to trifectanutrition.com/dogwalk for this exclusive offer.
Yep.
Go get some Trifecta nutrition.
You know, I've kind of given up on looking good in like a bathing suit, popping my shirt off. That's just not going to be my lifestyle. This is going to help me look good in a t-shirt and look good in a suit for wedding season.
There you go.
And that's at 34, 35 years old. That's all I care about. So it's working.
There you go.
Yep.
Trifecta Nutrition. Go get your hands on it. trifectanutrition.com/dogwalk. Get your deals now. All right, let's hop into part 2. I like this because it's kind of a callback on a bunch of other episodes we've done too. Like you brought up the woolly mammoth. We're like obsessed with the woolly mammoth on this show.
I love the woolly mammoth. There's this guy in Russia, Chaps. He's a scientist who his big plan to stop global warming is to bring back the woolly mammoth because he's gonna release, like he's gonna clone them and put them in elephants and like try to like over like several generations of this, and I mean several generations of this element woolly mammoth hybrid. So it'd only take like 10 years or something. He's just going to have a pack of them, and he thinks that will stop the melting of the permafrost because they'll just go down and like they'll be able to mow down all this grass, and then the grass grows back in a way when it's young grass. It extracts more carbon from the atmosphere and it sequesters it underground. And he has theorized that no animal does that as efficiently as the woolly mammoth. So that's his big plan. Yeah. So
I don't know if that's true, but I buy it totally. I
don't even care if it's true. Bring back the woolly mammoth.
I would love to ride one.
Who wouldn't? Get on board for that.
But I told Chief though I couldn't handle if the woolly mammoth is not what we have pictured for so many years. You know.
But like, if it came back, like when I first found out that Triceratops might not have been real, I was crushed.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean?
Triceratops is a figment of our imagination. Like most paleontologists are saying now that Triceratops is not real.
Really?
That it was made up.
Land Before Time was bullshit?
Yeah.
The sick one in
If they
Jurassic
take
Park?
back Ducky from Land Before Time, I will revolt.
You're out on science.
Yeah, I'll be totally out.
The Texan way.
But what you were saying about the stratus layers in the world, like where they look at different ones, that reminded me when I was in college, because I went to seminary, we used to talk about young earth creationism, which is the belief that the earth is only 6,000 years old. And that's how they view it. And the explanation for all these different things that modern scientists say happened over millions of years all trace back to Noah's flood. They say that Pangea was real, but the fact that all of this water came up from the ground and the entire earth was covered for 370 days, that's the reason why there's sedimentary rock on the top of the Himalaya mountains. That's the reason why the Grand Canyon exists, because it cut a sharp hole. And they'll use things like the stratosphere of having where you have one tree, for example, a fossilized tree that is in the stratus of a side of a mountain. Well, it's called a polyphosphate organism, where in multiple layers over time, modern science say that could be millions of years. If that's true, how can one tree be fossilized throughout multiple layers? That tree is not going to be millions of years old. No. It would have died, and the bottom part might have been fossilized, but the entire thing going through stratus rock should not be a thing.
That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you heard
Hard to argue.
Have you heard the argument about the hard science or the hard theoretical science about Noah's Ark and that flood, all the flood myths, because all the cultures around the world have that same flood myth. Like they have it, so where they have an asteroid hit like Greenland, and it hit an ice sheet and caused like massive flooding. And I think that's what really that happened like 12,000 years ago. So like that's what took out theoretically maybe even a place like Atlantis. And it took out like the woolly mammoths and all these like Paleo Indians who were there, early Americas.
Short-faced bear.
Short-faced bear. Eddie loves the short-faced bear.
It's a big bear.
And it's like a 14-foot high bear. And they think that asteroid impact, because it sent so much.
What does short face mean? Does he have like a pug face?
I think he's got a little bit of there's like fossil records of him, and he's just this massive, massive bear with crazy giant jaws. He's like, known as like runs like 35 miles an hour. And there's also theories that man wouldn't cross the Bering Land Bridge until that bear went extinct. Like they just like,
I don't blame him.
We're not fucking with that bear up in northern Alaska. Like we don't do that. And
I mean, you hear about a 14-foot tall bear, you stay your dumbass at home. You're not getting on that
staying in Asia.
And the fucker was everywhere too. That's what's hard.
Well, he had a range all the way down to Mississippi.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of callbacks here.
A lot of callbacks. But they have that same like this diamond glass all around the world. From an asteroid impact that happened like 12,000 years ago, and like the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark, all these different flood myths all kind of line up their timeline. Even the Atlantis, which I think came from Plato, like his messaging goes back to that same basic time frame. So it was all just passed down orally, but it all kind of lines up. So they had this crazy amount of moisture in the air, crazy, what do you call that? Like apocalypse type settings, and it came from that.
Yeah, it's very common in religions to adopt stories from other ones. Like the story of the Messiah is not just like Christian centric. It's
Egypt,
been around for forever. Yeah. It's a bit, any culture essentially has like a Messiah type figure.
Yeah.
We've legitimately morphed about 10 dog walks into this episode.
It's just the greatest hits episode.
It really is. It really is. Longtime listeners are going to be like, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Like, you got to wonder how the fucking Darien Gap fits into all this too.
Well, that, and then the other thing, they had all these like cataclysms that were caused by Pangea like pulling apart. So you had the asteroid that hit the Earth in Mexico when Earth was basically looking like it does now. That was 66 million years ago. Pangea, the way that, at least what I saw, was 350 to 200 million years ago, like the supercontinent. And when it started to pull apart, they had two different episodes where I'm talking that lasted like millions of years, where there's so much like volcanic activity and earthquakes that it wiped out like 98% of all species on the in the water and on land. So it's just like, well, we're erasing everything and we're starting over. And that happened twice, and it was just because it was constant, like millions and millions of years of volcanic ash and things like that. So it would cause acid rain, which would kill any marine life. And then Earth like kind of recovers, and then you come back and you have like more like dinosaurs and shit.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people think Pangea broke up into the 7 spots, but for millions of years, it was like 2 supercontinents where you had North America, Europe, and Asia together. And then on the bottom side, you had South America, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica. And then you had 2 super oceans as well. And the ocean went into the middle, and that's what started to form the like mid-Atlantic ridge.
Yeah.
So you said Africa is like, is that the closest thing that's in danger to like bumping into something? Is there anything that we know that could be actually falling off? You know, people joke about California falling off. Is there actually any proof of anywhere that something might be?
There's like the fault lines, like you talk about the California, like there's that San Andreas fault there. The biggest one is, I think it's in Ethiopia, but it's like they call it the Great African Rift, I believe is what it's called. And it's just like you can see the Earth like pulling apart, and it has like volcanoes. And you know what the Red Sea is, like in between Saudi Arabia and the rest, like where Moses went in and whoosh, hit the thing and split the Red Sea. They're saying that was originally like the same thing. It was like this big continental rift that just grew and grew and grew, and then water filled in and it became the Red Sea. But originally it looked like what's going on in Africa, which is not really water now. It's just, but you can see like the landscape is like actively looking like it's pulling apart.
Yeah, I thought it was Kenya. I wasn't sure which country it is, but you can look at it and it looks like if you were going to draw something that says proof Pangea, it would be that picture.
Yeah.
Like that's the picture that you would point to because you could see it now. And even in coastal areas where you have large mudslides that separate the shoreline from the actual coast, you could see how that type of thing happens, like sinkholes and like where the tectonic plates have moved enough where you have a gap in the system.
Sinkholes scare the shit out of me. Yeah, it goes from Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, and starts in Ethiopia. So it's like a huge. It's
That's
like
big. Yeah.
It's big. It goes all the way from like the base of the Red Sea, like cuts off Somalia and goes all the way down to like Zambia. So like down by Madagascar. So theoretically, you could have like another like continent that's probably like the size of Australia by itself if that splits off. But like when you say in danger, that might take like 25 million years. Okay. So I think we're good. I think we're probably good.
You grow up in Kenya or Ethiopia, I bet your mom tells you stay away from that fucking fault line. You better not. Better not go to the fault line. Your dumbass will fall in there.
I don't care what animals are running in there. Because that's where all the safaris are. Like you want, like I would just be like, I'm gonna drive my truck down into that rift, and the next thing you know, they have like active like lava spots in that Great African Rift Valley. Yeah,
it's so fascinating. And I don't mean to go too stoner here, but like you wonder if there's a day where we'll ever find out. You know?
Yeah.
Like you think in the afterlife we just figure out what happened to all this shit. That'd be kind of cool.
I feel like it has to be aliens because like when we take pictures of universes with like the Hubble telescope, the image that we get back, depending on what we're looking at, was like 80 million years ago. So we'd have to be like, hey, aliens, do you have any old pictures of us? Like, do you have any like old Polaroids of us from back in the day?
And your old Facebook albums?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mobile uploads.
Yeah. Like, yeah, actually, we brought them. This is when we first started looking at you guys. Wow. And it was like, but
that's a good point.
That would be the only way.
Did you look into that alien in Antarctica shit? I think Dante blocked it.
I did not have enough 3Chi to look into that.
They found some type of life form or something, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, those are like are just like weird like fossilized animals, like sea creatures that are like stuck up underneath the ice. But it's the same type of thing where if you look at some of these, there's a great PBS channel, Chaps. It's PBS Eons, and they go through like all this like old ancient stuff, and they show these animals like the short-faced bear or even older, like they say all the marsupials and stuff in Australia, they originally were from Antarctica, and there was some kind of land bridge, or like when we're talking about when the supercontinents are falling apart, but they have these fossil records in Antarctica that they recovered. That animal doesn't exist anymore, but it is like genetically similar to like wombats and possums and things like that we recognize now as like, well, that's really just in Australia, those marsupials.
Gotcha.
But they kind of came from Antarctica.
Huh.
And some of those deep ocean animals, those are aliens.
For
no
sure.
doubt about it.
Octopus are definitely aliens.
Yeah, and they're smart as hell.
Fuck yeah, they are. And they can just like, have you ever seen one do their like their camouflage thing where they sit on a rock and it's like that is just it just becomes the rock and it changes its color and it's crazy.
We should definitely do an episode on that at some point because then they say how many. It's like an unknown amount of species that they don't even know exist
in the depths of the ocean. Yeah.
I heard an oceanographer talking that they know more about space than they do what's going on in the depths of the ocean because it's easier to see.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you can go up to like the top of Mount Everest, but in reverse, so you go down that far, like 28,000 feet, you're only at you still have another 75% of the ocean to go down. Like you get to that point, like no light can get through. It's hard to even have like submarines withstand the pressure that would take, or to have any equipment that works down there. Like your only real thing is being able to chart it with radar and sonar, and like you just can't get to the bottom of the ocean.
See, I don't understand that. What do you mean you can't get to the bottom?
It's
you
too
can't.
much
they
pressure.
Haven't done it. Like the deepest parts of the ocean, like scientists haven't even gotten there yet.
So I'm aware this is a dumb question, but where the fuck is the Titanic sitting on that?
Well, it's like you have the Marianas Trench, which sits on one of these fault lines. So you have you have like ocean crust, and then you have like the earth, like the land crust, and the ocean crust is way more dense, so it slides underneath the continental plates, And that's what kind of causes earthquakes sometimes, and that's what those fault lines are. But so you have like the places in the Atlantic and it got to easily slope down. Then you have these other more dramatic ones. So you can get to the Titanic with like a crazy submarine, but think of like how long it took them to find the Titanic.
Yeah, fucking Alvin needed to get down there.
Yeah, exactly. It took them like 80 years. So it's pretty far down there, but there are places that are way further down on different like oceanic shelves than that. And they know how far from like radar and sonar.
Damn. You ever wish you were in the Navy, Chaps?
He was in the Navy. Marines are in the Navy, right?
Mm-mm. Well, Department of the Navy, but no Marine will ever say that they're in the Navy.
Okay.
But I feel like they could see some cool shit now.
Yeah, I don't know. We had some submariners on the show and they talk about it. You can't see anything. Like that's what I think would be really sad. Like you have the people that are obviously on radar and checking things out, but for the most part, the crewmen, they're just in like a metal tube going through. There's not like windows that you could see because you're going so deep that the windows would smash and break. So you don't see anything. I do think it would be cool. My biggest regret in the Marines is that I never went on what's called a Marine Expeditionary Unit, a MU, where you go on ship with the Navy and you spend time there going port to port. I think I would have liked doing that, but then looking out and being in this small ass area, like people live on the ship for 6-7 months at a time, that would also be really terrible.
Claustrophobic.
Yeah. Where are you going to beat off?
Damn. That does suck. They got no windows.
No window.
Yeah, like if you had submarine windows, like if you did it where it was like a glass bottom boat at Disney World and you put that as like for the U.S. Navy, sign me up. I'm in for that.
Hell yeah. Sky deck of the Sears Tower. You just look down.
It's awesome. Yeah, but
you have
then
your
you
GoPro,
still, like,
you're identifying like a blue whale. Like, look at this blue whale. Check out these pods.
But no light can get down there. Like light gets to the water, like it gets to a certain point where light can't penetrate even the water. So it's just black. Like you can't see shit. Doesn't matter if it's noon. Can't see anything.
Damn. Well, all right. Any last words on Pangea here? We got anything else, guys?
I think that's it. I think we might have to have Chaps back on to talk about oceans.
I'm down. I'm always down to come on. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, this was fascinating.
It's a good time, Chaps.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Fascinating and frustrating because you just never fucking know.
You just kind of have to throw
I think
your
that
hands
would be
up.
the most difficult part about being a geologist is that you're going to spend your entire life on this one thing and you're going to die not knowing if you were right.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing, this is kind of related, but kind of unrelated. You know how they have the polar, the magnetic field? Well, so like you can go north to south and like it like blocks out, like it deflects like sun ray, like these ultraviolet sun rays and like kind of keeps us safe. Well, those flip like, I don't know, every like 150,000 years or 100 million years or something like that. But we're due for that. So like north becomes south and south becomes north when it comes to like your magnetic field. So like if you were going to be walking north, I'm pretty sure this is how it works. And you have a compass, and your compass says north, and then that thing just flips. And now it's like you're walking the same direction, but now your compass says south. And that will change the way like you'll see like patterns in rocks. Well, when they like zigzag, that's an indication that those rocks were formed during one of these shifts in the Earth's magnetic sphere.
Fuck.
That's fucking crazy too.
And if that happens, all of the technology will be fucked because they use
done.
so much of that.
Yeah. All the satellites would be done. Like everything would just, and like they don't know how long it takes for it to like click back in. It's not just like someone flips a light switch. So then your whole planet would just be exposed to like the most dangerous rays of the sun as your magnetic sphere is like strengthening again.
Like we always talk about with aliens, if they have different types of civilizations and different universes and things like that, but we don't do it. Think about how old, 300 million years ago. I always think, are we really the first people to ever make cars?
Chaps.
Like you're telling me somebody didn't do that 150 million years ago and then population got wiped out?
So I talk about this all the time. I'm so glad you brought that up. I've said this fact to you before. This might be a callback to an old episode too, but if all of humanity just was gone in the blink of an eye, like we just all disappeared in 10,000 years, which is like, again, like a drop in the bucket. Nothing. In 10,000 years, there'd only be 2 landmarks on Earth letting somebody know who came after us that humans were here, that intelligent life was here. Can you guess what they are?
Oh, two man-made things.
Two man-made things.
I would say the Great Wall of China.
It's not one of them.
Oh, maybe Stonehenge.
Not one of them.
Oh,
because that would be overgrown by the grasses and
the pyramids.
The pyramids would be one. The other one's in the United States.
Wow. I don't know.
The other one's in the United States. Maybe the Golden Gate Bridge?
No, that would come down in like 2 years. That thing just requires constant maintenance. You know, there's not.
I'm just saying you could find the metal. I don't think those big chunks of metal. You'd be like, oh, what's this going on?
They would just
here?
rust over and break down. You'd never know it was there. It's
Bezos's clock.
Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore is the only thing that would still be showing that intelligent life was here.
Be like, who the fuck are these dudes?
Yeah. It must be pretty important. They put their heads on a fucking rock. So. Yeah, but that's it. So, and that's like we said, that's nothing. That's 10,000 years is nothing.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah,
I've watched those. There's those videos on YouTube. Like, what would happen what would happen to the Sears Tower if the world just went extinct? And
it used to be a History Channel show.
Oh, was that?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, you could see it with malls, right? Like the malls that are abandoned. You give it a couple years, and next thing you know, there's like vines growing in it. Everything. Same thing in Detroit with the Superdome, where it looks like it's going to be completely overtaken and turn into like a jungle.
Yeah, or Chernobyl is a great example of that too, because it was like this city that people had to evacuate because of all the nuclear fallout, and now it's just like you would never know. You would know it was there, obviously, but you have like all these things are just decaying and broken down, and that's only been like 25 years. So give it, another 100, 500, and then that's completely grown over. So Chaps, I'm with you. Maybe we left. Maybe it's like fucking Planet of the Apes, where they come back and they see like this Statue of Liberty just laying down in the desert. Could be.
Crazy.
I would like to get access to their old podcast, see what they're talking about.
Probably the same shit.
Probably.
Well, thank you, Chaps. This was fun.
Thank you for having me, fellas. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. That's it for today. We'll catch you tomorrow.